All right, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of the Integrity Racing Show in 2017. I'm your host, Todd Thomas. I'm joined here tonight by Integrity Racing League owner Jacob Fyfe and Integrity Racing League statistician Adam DeBlasio. We're trying out a new format of the show, trying some new gimmicks, so bear with us. We have done a couple trial runs, but it's still a little bit of a work in progress, so bear with us a little bit as we try to get everything straightened out so we can put on the best show for everyone here. So we started a new season last night. We hosted the first preseason race of the season at Atlanta with about a 1 hour practice and a 50-lap kind of shootout that turned into a little bit of a mess. And Jacob, we tried that for a specific reason. So why don't you tell everybody kind of what the thought process that was with the pre-race show, and what do you think we got out of it?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, we've heard the scuttlebutt, to use a different phrase, around iRacing is that having a 0% track state would help promote better multi-groove racing. Now, last year we started the track state out at about 30% or so, 35%, and then at each session, meaning your practice, your cue, and then into the race, that transferred over. So whatever rubber you built up from each session transferred over. So we want to try something a little different, see how well it would work in terms of starting practice out at 0% and then starting the race out at 0%. The first part of the race was a little messy, as Todd put it, but I think we had a longer run towards the end where we could kind of figure some things out, and I thought we made decent progress as to what we wanted to learn. There's still a few things that we like to learn um, for the coming season, so we'll keep working at that, and then hopefully we'll be able to make our product better in terms of something that's both comfortable, but that also makes you work in order to find different lines and find different places around the track to make you better.
All right, so that was kind of the thought process behind the race. Like Jacob said, we wanted to try to see if the zero starting state model really enabled people to move around on the racetrack more and enabled us to bring up some more multi-groove racing. Adam, you took part in the race last night, and you were one of the few people that was able to avoid a little bit of the scuttlebutt at the early of the race. So tell us what you thought about that, and if you think it'll make the league better in the long run.
Yeah, I actually didn't know about the 0% track starting state, so I was happy to do a practice race for Fyfe because he asked us, and he runs a good league. But early in the race, it seemed to me as pretty single groove. But after about 10 laps on that long run, I saw people in my rearview mirror taking different lines, running the high line, middle line, and low line, especially in 1 and 2. I saw Duel take the high line from Fyfe, and Fyfe ran into a wall because of it. That was pretty funny. But I had fun racing with Trey Browning for the win. I tried way too hard on the final corner, and I actually hooked into the wall and finished 4th. But it was a fun preseason race, and I just decided to go for it and see if the car would stick. But I thought the race was successful. The second half of the race was successful. I think we saw multi-grooves coming in.
All right, so that was a quick recap of the pre-race show that we had, preseason race, if you'll excuse me, at Atlanta Motor Speedway. We'll go back to Atlanta in 2 weeks, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there at Atlanta. There's your first interesting of the season. So we'll go to Atlanta in 2 weeks. Obviously, we start the season next week at Daytona. But before we talk about the season to come, let's talk about the rule changes that we had in the 2017 season. Jacob, before we get into the nuts and bolts and the particulars of the rule changes, kind of tell us about what the rule change process looks like. How do you sit down at the end of each year with your staff and say, all right, these are the things that we need to do and what we're hoping to accomplish this year?
Yeah, on a basic level, really what we try to do is sit down and, as the season progresses, I try to write down things that you learned from the previous season. No rule book is perfect, and this year won't be. We'll come up on things we didn't experience last year or the year before, that will create a change for the next year. So it's loosely based on that, but then from that, it's also based on discussion with admins, or every once in a while, you'll get a decent suggestion from one of the members that you can either implement fully or implement in one way, shape, or form. But really, this year was really sitting down and trying to look over the rule book as a whole and see. I'm trying to find the simplest way to put it, but basically see how to give drivers more freedom, to be able to do things, which I think you see this here to an extent, but more limitations, or put a tighter box around, like, say, for the incident limit, for example, is lower, but the trade-off is, you have the ability to, say, blocking for the whole race. So you have more discretion as a driver to do things, but the consequences for those things may be greater, and that's hopefully putting a little more power, if you will, into the driver's hands and how they go about racing within the rule book.
All right, so that's kind of the process. Let's get into the actual nuts and bolts of the Integrity Racing League rulebook. We're not going to go over through the whole thing, but we do want to quickly go through the rule changes that we're going to see in the 2017 season. The first one that we want to kind of update is this probationary period has changed. And Jacob, from speaking with you pre-show, it sounds like the Integrity Racing League is going to be a little bit stricter when it comes to that probationary period.
Very strict, actually. For the drivers who are coming into our league, last year was an extraordinary year for us, especially at the beginning of the season. Like I mentioned, it was something that I don't think any of us in the admin group expected. So when we came to the first race and there's 70 people wanting to sign up and race, that was definitely a curveball, good curveball, but a curveball nonetheless. So when that rule was there, but we need to enforce it more in order to give people who have raced with us consistently the ability to have chances to race, and for the new guys to understand, that there are a great number of people who race with us who take the series seriously, and who want to run it every week. So we want to make sure to have that balance where new people can come in and race with us, but if you race with us, we want you to stay. We want you to be a part of the full season, and not one of these things where you come in for Daytona, let's say, for example, or you come in for the first 2 or 3 races, and then we don't see you for the rest of the year. So when we hit situations like that, or in the case of the way the rule is laid out, where you basically need to make the first 4 of the first 6 races, we want you to be consistent in racing with us. Otherwise, we have plenty of people who do want to race.
All right, and so the next rule change, and Jacob kind of alluded to this, is a little bit more freedom, but a little bit of a tightening in the box in the incident cap. The incident cap for each race lowers on ovals all the way down to 14. So that's going to affect some drivers that maybe have gotten themselves into a few incidents throughout the race. So the incident cap drops down to 14. And then also you see in red here the number of incidents cautions that are caused throughout the season prior to suspension has been lowered. So any member that causes 5 cautions during the regular season now receives their 2-week suspension. And then after 8 races, now a 5-race suspension. So we're talking pretty punitive here. The incident cap both lowers, and instead of a 1-race suspension, you're talking about 2 races now, and then 5 races after an 8 caution season. Adam, you're somebody that's known as a clean driver, so hopefully this won't apply to you too much. But tell us a little bit about what you think this might do for the league and what impact you see it having in the 2017 season.
Instant cap is definitely interesting because it's a no-fault system, and you could see some drivers DQ out more in the beginning of the season, especially when we're probably going to get 43 car fields through the first 12 races of the season. I wouldn't expect less than that, but that's definitely going to be. I do like that change. It's not that much of a change going from 18 to 14. Hopefully, this makes people race smarter throughout the entire race, so they don't accumulate incident points. And as far as the suspension caution threshold, 5, 8, and 10, I believe that will allow a bit more leeway in the regular season, as it's a bit different than before. I think because the regular season is 26 races, it's a good thing to allow some wiggle room. I think in the beginning of the season, you're going to see a lot of DQs and some cautions count against some people. But when people get to learn this new system, I think this is going to be great for the league.
All right, and Jacob, as the Integrity Racing League owner and the admin, you kind of had a strong hand in lowering that. Talk about that change and the impact that you guys are hoping to see take place in the league.
Yeah, in its simplest form, cleaner racing is what we're looking for. When you look at the caution count from last year, basically we had a few people hit the 3 cautions which is a 1 race suspension, which that stayed the same. Where it changes was after that point, and over the course of 26 races last year, we only had, I believe, 2 people hit that second threshold. So we feel that A, our drivers can handle it, and B, we want to make sure that we can try to keep the racing as clean as possible. And hopefully, as drivers are racing, the mindset that, either I have 4 less incidents to play with, otherwise I'm kicked out for the rest of the race, or the caution count will somewhat play a role in how people drive on a race-to-race basis.
All right, and the next rule change for the year is now drivers are expected to actually call the cautions on themselves. And Jacob, I'm not sure, but I would suspect that the purpose behind this rule change might be so that you're not up till 3 o'clock in the morning trying to decide who got each caution. Is that the case, and what are you trying to accomplish there?
Well, it's two different things. So the rule that you're referring to is for the truck series, which is new for us for Tuesday nights, or coming back for some of you. The way that we do the Cup series will always be the same. So basically what it referenced here down at the bottom, which you see on your screen, is that I want to make sure that people are understanding why they're getting the cautions they're getting attributed. So they have the option to either protest or understand this is why it's happening, and maybe this is a way you can improve how you drive. So the way we do our Cup Series stuff isn't changing from a management standpoint. I still review each caution. If you're attributed with the caution, you have the ability, which we'll announce here on the show, you'll have the ability to, like I said, either accept it or appeal it, and then we go through that process. For the truck series, we want something more fun. We want something more relaxed, both for the racers and the admins. So basically for the truck series, it's simple rules, simple fun. We're going to go out and race. If a caution comes out and you're the cause of it, just, hey, it's my caution. We give you an eval. It's done with. If you have a dispute over whether you're the cause of the caution or not, then it reverts back to basically our Cup system, and we'll review it after the race. Whoever we feel the cause of the caution is, we'll put you at the end of the lap that you finished on, and then that's it. So we want to make it simple for the truck series because we want it to be fun. We took about 4 pages of rules out of the truck series rule book that's not in the Cup series, just to kind of give it a different feel, for lack of a better way of explaining it. But yeah, 2 different rule books there, but the same general purpose.
All right, and the next rule changes for the 2017 season deal with restart. So let's look over those together. In red this year, the leader has control of the pace car, the restart as soon as the pace car makes any initial move towards the pit lane area. That'll be really, I'm a big proponent of that rule change. I really do believe that the leader has earned the right to have an advantage, and allowing everybody to be on the green flag really or know it was coming on the green flag, did really kind of allow for people to game the restart a little bit. So now the leader has a little bit more control, and this rule change here as well is something that mirrors pretty much real life, if I'm not mistaken, is that drivers in real life that have damaged or beat up race cars but are placed in front of faster race cars that maybe got a penalty or pit with 1 to go, and so they're at the tail end of the line. Those cars are able to just what's called lay over and let the faster cars around. So no longer will people be given EOL penalties if they pass those cars, if those cars announce, hey, you guys can go around me on the restart. So that'll be interesting to see how it impacts the season. That's interesting number 2 if you're keeping count. That's a good rule change and something that I think is something to see. And here's the maybe most intriguing rule, and something that we might have the most disagreement on throughout the season, is the new blocking rule. Blocking's legal from the start of the race. Jacob, you talked about giving the drivers a little bit more freedom here, and this is kind of your boys have at it rule for the season.
Yeah, we'll know real quick whether this rule is going to be effective or not, because the rule came about from a race in Atlanta, and Atlanta's week 2 on the schedule, so we'll figure out real quick whether or not I'll be happy with this rule change. But basically, the deal with this is we want you to have more ability to race your race. And with that extra ability comes more responsibility. We really want to give you, obviously, like for me, for example, last year at Martinsville, I was able to get my win by blocking the living daylights out of Andrew. But with that comes, as we did last year, if you block someone and they hit you or put you in the wall, it's your responsibility. It's your fault for blocking them to begin with. So you have the option to do it, but if somebody puts you in the wall, then it's still on you. It's not on the guy who put you there because you got in their way. So the rule in itself doesn't change. It's just a matter of we're opening it up to every lap instead of just the last 5 laps.
All right, and the last 2 changes we'll discuss now deal with the playoffs. So 18 races, up from 14 last season. Now you have to compete in 18 of the 26 races during the regular season. I can't really do that math in my head, but I believe that's somewhere in the neighborhood of 70%. I'm sure Adam will do it in here in just a second and tell us. And then the new rule that really affects a couple of drivers actually this year, since Fyfe is not the only in-pass driver in the league at this point, is that in-pass drivers are not eligible for the championship. They're eligible for any other prize or competition that's completed during the course of the season, and including the regular season points leader, but they're not eligible for the postseason championship. So sad news there for Fyfe, as he will not be able to 3-peat or 4-peat or whatever the hell it is. And then finally, we've made a change to the new locked-in status and how we determine who those locked-in drivers are. You can see that here in the red. Locked-in drivers will be those who made the change from the previous year. So woohoo, I'm locked in. And those who previously competed in at least 75% of the race's previous seasons. And then the locked-in emeritus drivers remain pretty much the same. And then we get to the top 24 after the first 6 races. So those are the rule changes for the 2017 season. We've kind of spent a little bit longer on those than we kind of anticipated, but a lot of really meaningful rule changes that we wanted to make sure all the drivers in the league were up to date on. as we start the 2017 season. And now it's time to talk about racing, by God. Next Monday night, we go to Daytona to do the Integrity Racing League Daytona 250. Adam, I know you're excited as somebody who actually kind of enjoys restrictor plate racing a little bit, enjoys just about any type of racing he can get his hands on. What are you looking forward to about getting back into the Integrity Racing League season and at Daytona next Monday night?
Well, as much as I love restrictor plate. To say I love restrictor plate racing, I don't really care for it that all too much. I can't wait to get to Atlanta, to be honest. But in terms of this new season, I'm looking forward to. Can't really defend Rookie of the Year because I'm no longer a rookie. But I did get this in the mail, which is awesome. Today, got my Rookie of the Year trophy, so I'm happy, excited. So you rookies that are going for Rookie of the Year this season, that's what you have to look forward to. I'm definitely looking back to hopefully winning a race. I believe I finished second 2 times last year. Chase Elliott in real life actually finished second in real life. So hopefully we both get our first wins this year in our respected leagues or race seasons. Definitely the goal is to make the chase and then from there out make the Final Four again to compete for a championship at Homestead.
All right, so let's actually take a little bit of a look back and let's look at what happened last year in the Integrity Racing League at Daytona. Last year, Tyler Herr opened up the season with the Daytona 250 win, leading a race high 43 laps and beating out Andrew Fayesh by just about 2/100ths of a second. An incredibly great finish and a fun race to take part in. So. That race will happen again next Monday night. Tyler will be unable to defend his Daytona 250 championship as Tyler is still suffering from some mechanical difficulties at the shop and is not ready to get back on the racing surface. So Daytona is always exciting. Jacob, as the owner of the league, it's kind of nice to see your baby grow another year older, I'm sure, and getting ready to go into the 2017 season.
Yeah, another year that looks like it's going to be really good. I have a lot of interest. Obviously, we had our preseason race the other night, which had really good participation, and that's just a practice race. So I'm looking forward to another great season. I think we have a lot of competitive drivers this year that we'll probably talk about for a quick second before we get out of here. But I think we're turning 4 this year, 4 or 5 this year, something like that. So we've been very lucky and blessed to have good members who participate in our league and support it very well. And I'm grateful and appreciative of that. So I'm looking forward to getting 2017 kicked off with both the Cup Series, which will be on Monday, and then the Tuesdays with the Truck Series coming back will also be very fun, and I'll be looking forward to it as well.
All right, and let's talk a little bit about the Rookie of the Year. Adam alluded to it, and we've got a whole heap of rookies as we do just about every year in the Integrity Racing League. We're just going to name them all here and welcome them all to the league. A big welcome to, and most of these guys have maybe done a race in the past, but Brad Patton, Nick Terabutch, Bobby Childs, who was in the exhibition race last night, Brandon Coppinger, Ryan Worley, I'm not even going to pronounce that name, Daniel Holloway, Michael Patton, Caleb Eisenhower, Tom Wetmore, who's I believe won a race in the Integrity Racing League last year, but is back as a qualified rookie. Logan Sheets, I've heard he's pretty slow. Joe Lawrence, Nick Williams, John Crabtree, and Nick Stoller might join us for a race this year. So welcome to all those guys. Adam, as the defending champion of the Integrity Racing League Rookie of the Year, these are the guys trying to follow in your footsteps. What advice do you give to rookies that are coming into the league this year?
My advice would probably be, first few races, learn people's driving styles. You definitely don't want to make enemies. Don't run into anyone. Try and keep it as clean as possible. Finish all the races. Don't go for those top 10s immediately, because you do get a lot of drop races because it's the best 17 out of 36. But other than that, have fun with it, and should be a good year.
All right, and then also in the Integrity Racing League, we're bringing back the team challenge this year. So we'll go ahead and pull this up, and I'll zoom out. As the league statistician, as we look at the Integrity Racing League Team Challenge, how does this work? What's the goal? And if a team's saying, I really want to try to get through the Integrity Racing League season and end up as a team champion, what advice would you give them to make that happen?
I'm not sure. I could go over the changes, but I don't know what it will take to win it, because this is the first year we're going to try this. So last year, the change, really, to be completely 100% honest, the change from 2016 to 2017 was to make my life a whole lot easier in calculating the points, because that was a pain in the butt, trying to take out people's provisional points and chase points and other points that I would have to adjust people's point totals for. And I decided to simplify it and just make it look a whole lot more simple. Another thing is, last year, I did it in a way where there wasn't much fluctuation in the points. Traditional point standings, you accumulate points throughout the season. So this new format will allow for that. So highlights for 2017. Each driver's race points will be added together and averaged to get the team's average for the race. And then for each race, those team points will be accumulated throughout the season to get the overall points. Since everything else has drop weeks, I also talked with Fyfe and decided to add 6 drop weeks in this team challenge. So the best 30 out of 36 races count for each team. The next rule change has been a pretty hot topic, is the maximum of 5 drivers per new team. I did that just to make it more competitive, because naturally bigger teams will have a lower average, just because if you do the average of the sum of the numbers 1 through 5, you get 3.5 average finish, and then 1 through 10 for a 10 driver team, you get an average finish of like 5th. So it's naturally, larger teams are naturally at a disadvantage. And looking at the team challenge, everyone basically has 4 or 5 members, which is what I want. Existing teams are allowed 6 drivers if and only if they are over the maximum 5 driver threshold by 1 driver. That's to make my life easier and not to deal with stuff that I don't want to deal with. And finally, the deadline to create a team is going to be Monday at noon on the day of the Atlanta race. 12:01. I'm not accepting any new teams. I'm making that a hard deadline. I'm not going to accept anything after that. But hopefully this will be a very competitive season, and I hope that the new structure will make it more exciting and entertaining to keep track of.
All right, and I know that new rule change that only 5 drivers are allowed on each team has already caused a couple of teams. Our defending team champion in Lockdown has had to split up into 2 teams this year. 2 to Green is split up into 2 teams, which will allow more drivers to have a little bit more impact, and then I think you'll also see a little bit of rivalry. Obviously, the two lockdown teams want to compete against each other and beat each other, and so do the two green teams. So we'll see how that shapes out, and the team challenge is something that a lot of people always enjoy. As we wrap up the first show of the season, Jacob, as the owner, will bring you in for the closing word here. As we get ready for the 2017 season, what are your goals this year? What do you hope to see? And what kind of excitement are we looking forward to as we start the season on Monday night?
Well, I'd like to see me with the championship by the end of the year. I finally made the rules to work where I don't have to worry about Andrew for 3 years in a row. No, I'm kidding. By the way, as far as the Andrew rule goes, the only way that rule happens is if Andrew agrees to it. So thank you to him. But no, in all seriousness, looking forward to a good year. I think I'm looking forward to, personally speaking, hopefully be able to back up what I've done the past 2 years. Maybe one spot better would be nice. But there's a lot of great competition. That's what makes the league work so well. I'm also hoping to see our friendly faces who've stuck with us through the past couple of years stay with us, and we create more bonds, more relationships. I think in the past couple of years we've done a really good job for the most part of having a good core group of people who come race with us each week, and I think we enjoy racing with each other. Might be some bumps along the way, but all in all, I think we do get along for the most part, and I want to see that grow and be able to develop the league even more to make it a better league as a whole, and not just individual racers out there going out there to race. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to do another IRL get together this year, which we've talked about a little bit, and I'll hopefully be announcing some stuff here soon. And just like I said, have a great season. It should be a great one. I know the anticipation has been building over the past couple weeks, and I'm ready to get things kicked off Monday night.
All right, so that's the first Integrity Racing show of the season. We'll be back next week to recap the Daytona 250 immediately after the truck race. That's we're going to move our start time from 8 o'clock tonight when we obviously didn't have our truck race. But on weeks that we do have our truck race, we'll be doing the Integrity Racing show immediately after the truck race. So check us out next Tuesday night. We'll recap the Daytona 250, see where things stand. We'll talk about the truck race a little bit, I'm sure. So thanks for coming out for the Integrity Racing Show 2017 Season 2, Version 1. And we'll see you next week on the Integrity Racing Show. Have a good night, everybody.